This new Apple leak has the entire world in complete and utter shock. There are some crazy new design choices for the new iPhone 15. Some have consumers excited, others not so much. You won't believe what we just found out about the iPhone 15. Here's everything you need to know about the new Apple leak that revealed the new iPhone 15 design. Okay, so first of all, there are a few new updated features Apple has made for the soon-to-be released iPhone 15, one of which is a bit controversial. Perhaps the biggest change they're making to the iPhone design is the changes to the volume and mute buttons. On the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max models, the mute switch will be replaced by a pressing type button.
And the reason for Apple doing this is that they should be more durable that way, since there's not going to be any moving parts, and the phone would also be more water sealed for a potentially better water resistance.
Basically, users will have to force press it on and off instead of the typical switch, which by the way has been the same on every iPhone since the original release. So naturally, this is quite the change. This change is not seeming to go over well with users. Even though it wasn't even released yet, fans of the OG mute switch are angry at the slightly inconvenient button replacing it. One thing brought up by current iPhone users is that if you have a case on your phone, the new buttons may become extremely difficult to properly press. For an idea of what these buttons will be like, think of the current MacBook trackpads or the iPhone 7 home buttons. They aren't actually real buttons, more a surface where you can press in a certain spot to do what you need to do. But thinking about having this on the side of the phone is a bit confusing, and things would probably get complicated with a phone case. Besides the complications with this new button technology, why else are people so hung up on the mute switch? What's so special about the mute switch? Well, one perk of the current layout is that it can be used out of sight. Confused? Let me explain. A big reason why people like the switch is that it can be accessed while the phone is still in your pocket. Let's say you're in a meeting and your phone dings. You can simply reach into your pocket and flip the switch. The same cannot be said for the new button that's not a button. It may make the design more sleek and minimalistic, but it seems the general consensus is that it's inconvenient. As for the volume buttons, they will be replaced by the same type of button as the ringer. It'll be one long button which you press on either side to adjust the volume. But why is Apple making this change all of a sudden? Do they get anything out of it, or is it just a design perk? Well, when designing something like a phone, anything that moves, like a real button or a switch, is a point of complexity. These points can result in failures or water ingress. On top of the risk factor being lower for these buttons, it's also cheaper, which is always a good thing, right? Speaking of good things, let's take a look at the differences between the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 15 Pro/Pro Max. With the release of the iPhone 15, the difference between the regular phone and its Pro equivalent was bigger than ever. Now with these new leaks, it looks like the gap is going to be even wider. The specs that were shown in this leak were extraordinary, with the iPhone 15 Pro having drastically different specs than the standard model. But that's not all. An industry insider states that the new iPhone 15 Pro Max, the most luxurious of the new lineup, will come with a next-generation Samsung panel. So, what's so special about that? I'm glad you asked. The Samsung panel is capable of reaching a mind-blowing 2500 nits of brightness. Can you believe that? This would absolutely knock the competition out of the park.
Samsung's next-gen display panels reach an incredible 2500 nits of peak brightness, and according to Chun V, these panels are going to be used in the iPhone 15. Chun V tweeted to say that the iPhone 15 Pro models are in development and they're using the latest Samsung M13 panels.
If this turns out to be true, nothing will be able to compete with this display. Speaking of knocking everything out of the park, that includes Samsung's own Galaxy S23 lineup, which was just recently released. That's right. This display will outperform even the direct competitors. Crazy, right? But just wait. If you're still stuck trying to understand just how powerful this new display will be, here's some info to hopefully give you a better idea. Let's take a look at their biggest competitor, Samsung. All Galaxy S23 models have a maximum brightness of 1750 nits, but the new iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max can hit up to 2000 nits in a restricted outdoor mode. However, they're limited to just 1000 nits indoors and 1600 nits for HDR content. Even the QD OLED panels featured in Samsung's 2023 flagship televisions max out at 2000 nits. Incredible technology, especially considering that it's already doubling what the panels could achieve just last year. Unbelievable. So now that we know exactly how extraordinary these levels are for a screen, let's refocus on the iPhone leak. The 2500 nit levels that the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max are predicted to have probably only gets as bright as 2000 nits in an indoor setting. Because like I said, the brightest setting, in this case 2500, will pretty much only be utilized for an outdoor brightness mode. Regardless of that, it's still incredibly impressive that the screens on these phones will be capable of that. The capabilities of these new phones are unlike anything we've seen on the market as of right now, which is pretty cool to say the least. Want to hear something else cool? This next leak is proof that sometimes leaks aren't always right the first time. When it comes to leaked information, it's best to take it all with a grain of salt until it's confirmed. With that being said, you won't believe what this next leak has to say. At first, this leak claimed that Apple would be focusing on creating a foldable iPhone.
This is the folding concept similar to the flip style of folding concept that, of course, Samsung did. There's also some really recent news because Oppo just put out their version of it, making it the second commercially available flippity flappity.
But since the initial release of this information, things have changed. Now the source is claiming that instead, Apple will be focusing on designing a foldable iPad. Pretty cool, right? Considering that most of their competitors have already come out with foldable tablets, this could be the one missing thing from the current iPad lineup. But there are a few more pieces of information on the new iPhones that we haven't discussed yet. Information sourced by Mac Rumors states that Apple's new 3nm A17 chipset will be exclusive to iPhone 15 Pro models. What is a 3nm A17 chipset, you may be wondering? Well, I'll tell you. For reference, the iPhone 14 features an A15 Bionic chip, which is sort of an older and less updated version of the A17 chipset. Both are microchips that store information and help the iPhone run smoothly. Basically, it powers your phone and processes data. Pretty standard stuff, and they're found in any phone or computer these days. So the reason why it's such a big deal for the new iPhone 15 to have a 3nm A17 chipset is that it has never been seen before on the market. It would completely outperform any other phone that's currently out there, and would be incredibly fast. Not to mention, with the new iPhone 15, the connectivity will be different too. With Wi-Fi 6E for the Pro version, you just know this phone is going to be outstanding in speed and efficiency. Well, there you have it. That's everything we know from the current leaks of information about the new iPhone 15. What do you think? Will you buy it? This has been everything we know about the new Apple leak, which revealed new info on the iPhone 15.